The teacher they called a country bumpkin was the only one who made the boy speak. They said I was an ignorant girl from the countryside. But I wasn't angry, truly. I just remember that when those words were spoken, I was standing in the middle of the teacher's lounge, holding a cup of cold tea. My shirt still smudged with paint from the morning art class. The room went silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then the noise resumed as if nothing had happened. But I knew they heard it. The one who said it was Ms. Hong, the homeroom teacher of Class 2A. The elite class at Han Min Primary School, where I had just been hired as a 6-month teaching assistant. I had never felt resentment so quickly toward someone, but I had also never met anyone as cold as her. Beautiful face, sweet voice, but every word she spoke hit like icy water to the face. I was assigned to be a floating assistant, meaning I helped any class that needed support. In reality, that meant doing all the jobs no one wanted, cleaning boards, scrubbing toilets after art class, watching over difficult students during recess. Among them was one child I couldn't take my eyes off from the very first time we met, the boy sitting at the end of the 2A hallway. Crouched alone, eyes gazing into space like he was talking to the wind. His name was Long. No one wanted to mention him, unless it was to shift responsibility. Ms. Hong often lowered her voice and said, "That child, just leave him be. Doesn't talk, doesn't study, doesn't interact. There's something wrong there." But the parents, well, they've got money. Then people would give an awkward laugh, the kind of laugh that, after hearing enough times, starts to haunt you. I asked to personally support Long during break times. Ms. Hong looked at me like I'd just asked to bury myself alive. You know, he once knocked over an entire bookshelf, pulled a girl's hair, and scratched a teacher bloody, she said. I just bowed and softly replied, "Yes, I know, but I'd like to try." Then I turned away, hiding my trembling hand in my pocket. I never told anyone the real reason I dared to do it. Because I once had a younger brother like Long. His name was T. He died when I was 16, after a seizure one summer afternoon back home, while I'd just stepped out to buy milk. I wasn't fast enough. Since then, I've always looked for children like my brother, eyes that don't speak, but silently plead for help. On the first day I sat with Long in the hallway corner. He didn't react. I pulled out a blank notebook and began to draw with colored pens. I didn't say much, just let the pen form a fish, then a small boat. He looked, then turned away, but he didn't run. On the third day, as I was drawing a smiling face, I noticed his eyes flutter, and when I stood to leave, I heard the scratch of a pen across paper. I turned around, he was drawing too. Also a smiley face, though crooked and clumsy. I wanted to cry, but I just smiled and nodded. That afternoon, during the weekly meeting, Ms. Hong pointed at me in front of all the teachers. If you're not trained in special education, don't intervene. Our school doesn't need another lawsuit." Her words hit like a hammer. I stood there feeling like a thief. But I simply bowed and said, "I understand. I take full responsibility. I'm just sitting beside the child and drawing. That's all." No one said a word. But in some eyes, I saw pity. In Ms. Hong's eyes, perhaps contempt. That night, I returned to my tiny rented room. Sat beside a small rice cooker, boiled eggs, sautéed water spinach, and an old photo of tea by the bed. I asked silently, "Do you think I'm doing the right thing?" The photo gave no answer. But the next morning, I still went to school. Still sat at the hallway corner, colored pens in hand. There's one thing I'm sure of. Even if they think I'm a backward, unqualified, worthless girl, I will still sit there. Because I once lost a sibling, and I don't want to lose another. And then she left, quietly, without drama, just a person who had realized her own limits, too late to undo the damage in others' eyes. I officially accepted the offer from the inclusion program, but I didn't quit Han Min Primary. I proposed a part-time arrangement, mornings with Long, afternoons as a consultant at the city center. At first, the administration hesitated, but pressure from the department and the parent community pushed them to agree. They gave me a small room near the library, called it Creative Corner for Special Students. I smiled. A beautiful name, yes, but I knew what that room truly was. A place where a child could draw a crooked heart without fear of being laughed at. I placed a small handwritten sign outside the door. "Hello, little one. In here, you don't have to speak with words, Just listen to your heart. Long was the first student to enter that room every morning. And slowly, more children came. Some stuttered, some feared eye contact, some were labeled problem students, but all it took was a chair and a colored pencil. And they began to bloom. I didn't heal them, I didn't perform miracles, I just stayed, and listened. 1 year later, Han Min Primary changed the sign at its gate. The new slogan read, in bold letters, "A friendly inclusive school, where every child is seen." I stood outside the school gate one early April morning. The sun soft, the breeze gentle, like a greeting that didn't need words. Long was now in 3rd grade. He wasn't completely silent like before. He still spoke little, but every word he said was listened to like a tiny miracle. One day, he called out to me from afar. "Ms. Mai, are we painting today?" I turned and smiled. "Yes, and we've got donuts too." He ran to me, holding a drawing of a stilt house. "I drew it from your hometown photo." I was speechless, not because the drawing was perfect, but because he remembered, he listened, he connected. That evening, I attended a seminar hosted by the City Education Council. I didn't speak, I just sat in the 3rd row, quietly listening to experts, policymakers, and teachers share about autism and inclusive learning environments. At the end of the program, the host suddenly announced, "We'd like to invite Ms. Nguyen Ngoc Mai, the inspiration behind the Silent Creative Room model, on stage." I stood up, heart pounding, not because I feared public speaking, but because I never imagined being formally called teacher like that. I stepped up, accepted a small bouquet and a certificate, but what stayed with me wasn't the applause. It was the sight of Long sitting in the audience, proudly holding up a drawing board with bold words. "Ms. Mai is my home." I couldn't speak, I just bowed, and smiled. After the ceremony, I returned to my hometown. A small riverside village, where summer flame trees still bloomed, and Aunt Tam from down the lane still called out, "Mai, is that you? Home for a few days?" I visited T's grave, brought with me the drawing Long had made. I placed it next to the burning incense and whispered, "See, little brother, I kept my promise, I didn't give up." I sat there for a while as the wind stirred the wild grass. I heard the sounds of childhood again, the silence of a child in a poor kitchen long ago. Sobs no one understood, scratchy drawings on walls with half-burnt sticks. Those sounds had now become voices, gazes, and hope. Back in the city, I continued my work, outside teaching hours. I co-founded a group with some friends, Listening by Heart, offering free weekend classes for special needs children in worker communities. We had little funding, just patience, some skills, and a mountain of faith. Many children at first curled up in classroom corners, covering their ears, but then one day, they smiled, then drew, then whispered, just like Long. A young journalist once asked me, "Do you see yourself as someone special? Do you have a gift?" I shook my head and smiled. I'm just someone who didn't turn away when a child was left behind in silence. At the end of that year, I received a gift box from Long's parents. Inside was a tiny wind chime and a handwritten note. "Thank you, teacher. Because of you, our child no longer gets lost in silence." I hung that wind chime by the door of our classroom, the room once meant for the difficult child. It rings every time the wind passes. Just like a child's first voice, soft, but far-reaching. There are people who spend their entire lives longing to be heard. And children who grow up in silence because adults are too busy to look deep into their eyes. This story is not just about a young, patient teacher and a special child, it's a quiet but profound reminder of what society often forgets: kindness, listening, and the power to heal from the most unexpected souls. Sometimes, life makes us feel small, like our voices don't matter. But the truth is, when we choose to stay, to persist in kindness in a cold world, that's when we begin to change it. No matter who you are, where you're from, or what your past holds, what sets you apart isn't necessarily what makes you weak. Real gold fears no fire. Those with heart will always find their way. And most importantly, never stay silent in the face of injustice. Never overlook the small things, for sometimes, that's exactly where the light begins to shine through. If you've ever felt overlooked, witnessed injustice, or have a healing story that touched you, Don't hesitate to share in the comments. We're always listening. Like this story if it warmed your heart. Share it with someone who needs it. And subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories, where each one reminds us to slow down, reflect deeply, and love the right way. Wishing you a peaceful evening. And if your heart still feels restless today, may tomorrow be gentler. Herb.